Happy 4th of July, people. This is Clayton on behalf of Operation Rock. I had some free time this morning, so I have decided to make some content as it's focused towards domestic violence. Today, I'm going to take the time to explain my domestic situation. It's with regard to litigation abuse, excuse me, because I was granted a justice yesterday, people, which has taken a mountain of pressure off of my back. I mean, people, I feel so light right now. I have been going through an incredibly stressful situation with regard to my offender and my ex girlfriend, who has been relentless in her pursuit to hold me accountable for things that I've never done. I've been lied on. I've been falsely litigated. I've been slandered, not only myself, but my late deceased mother. All of this has happened with the protection and the guidance of a local black pastor on Staten Island, New York, Pastor Victor Brown, and with the assistance of the most racist prosecutorial institution in the state of New York, which is, to me, in my opinion, I could be wrong. There could be other places in upstate New York which is far worse than Staten Island. But in terms of New York City's law enforcement departments, district attorneys' offices, I would say Staten Island has the award for the most racist and biased district attorney office in the city of New York. I was criminally charged on Staten Island for offenses that I never did, that the Staten Island District Attorney's Office knew that I was innocent of, yet a propensity for the district attorney's relationship with my ex girlfriend and her pastor caused me to be criminally charged with offenses that they knew I was completely innocent of. So I spent about a year, people, about 9 months fighting off this false case, which was finally dismissed thanks to transcripts that proved my offender was lying through her teeth. So today, people, I am going to take the time to read the decision that was granted to me by a court that will keep my offender away from me. And people, again, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing my intention on doing this is not to do this to embarrass my offender, to embarrass anybody else. People, I am a legitimate victim of domestic violence, being horribly discriminated against by biased and racist law enforcement systems who refuse to honor and respect my rights and protections as a victim of domestic violence. My order, which is federally protected, has been completely denied by the Staten Island DA's office, despite the fact that multiple judges have granted me the credibility to be heard by law enforcement with regard to what is going on with me. People, as a black men face multiple strikes before we ever get to the plate, the proverbial plate, as the analogy is used in baseball. The one stripe is that yes, we are black. The second strike is that we are men. When you're in a situation where you may have a criminal record, you have three strikes. And people, I had all three strikes coming into this situation. But strength and love is what really got me through this. I'll be honest with you, because there was a point, people, where I was really, 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 really doing bad. I had lost my mother. My daughter had been taken away from me, and my offender was doing everything in her power to lie and destroy me. On top of that, people, I come from a very Christian community where the people of my community completely turned on me because they were happened to like my offender better. It didn't matter if she was telling the truth or not, people, because it wasn't based on the truth. It was based on popularity. And see, this woman and her mother had a hell of a jump on me by going around launching a campaign where they literally slandered and defamed me to every person I know, accusing me of physically assaulting this young woman. But people, I never did that. And I fought hard to prove that. I was attacked by Pastor Victor Brown. I was attacked by Michael McMahon in the Staten Island District Attorney's Office. I was attacked by Safe Horizon, who put this woman on a platform to be a victim after she was convicted of harassing me. People, I was attacked by the Family Justice Center, which refused to deny me my legal rights as the victim and to help me get my offender off of me. So I had to become knowledgeable. I had to use my capacities to learn how to fight these people off, people. And again, I have to correct myself because I've said this in the past. It wasn't all about racism. It was about bigotry. It was about favoritism. It was about sexism. It was based on the corruption which is saturated within the domestic violence process. Black men would never be treated with victim rights unless we fight for those rights because the system itself, which is controlled by bigots and racists, do not want to grant black men the appearance of being a victim. They would much rather us be predominantly thought of as criminals and offenders. They don't want people to think that we can be human enough to have rights that need to be protected. But people, I understood this, and I knew that as a man, forget a black man, as a human, as a citizen, that I had rights that these people had to enforce. So I fought for them. And finally, people went through, despite all the corruption, but despite all the attempts by unethical attorneys and unethical prosecutors, my order of protection was 100% affirmed yesterday, and it has remained active, and my offender is still listed as the defendant. So today I'm going to take the time to read that decision because the decision is not protected by court. The decision is public record. Anyone can read it. So I'm going to read it because I think it's important to help me establish what has truly gone on with me. Not because, again, I want to hurt my offender. I don't. The truth of the matter is I kind of pray for my offender. I truly feel sorry for her because this did not have to happen. No one needed to go through all of this and spend years in court for something this stupid, people. This was truly done because this woman was so immature that she could not grow out of being told what to do by her mother and her grandmother, who caused this entire situation. She needed to show her nanny and her mama that she knew how to deal with a man like they had done, because she comes from a long line of women who have falsely had men arrested and prosecuted for domestic violence offenses. I mean, her mother claimed domestic violence against her father, people, and that was a complete lie. The man didn't beat the woman. He just fucking left her because she was a bad person, which is clearly obvious by the fact that she has transferred all of those negative, lying, deceitful characteristics into her daughter, my offender, Francina Evans. So, people, again, today I read this decision not with a light heart. Actually, I'm not even going to say that. I do read it with a lighter heart. I read it with a lighter heart, people, because I was forced to deal with this situation for the last 6 months. And from what you'll hear in this petition, you'll see what I was going through. Now, I'm going to start a little bit before with the backstory. Back in, I believe it was October, my offender began to create social media content where she accused me of being a diagnosed schizophrenic and also stated that my mother, a minister from Staten Island, the late Reverend Maggie Howard, hid from her community the fact that her son had abused her and she had an order of protection against me. So to summarize, this woman had said that I was crazy and I beat my mother, and my mother put an order of protection on me. And because my mother hid this from the people in the community, she was forced as a young woman, as a victim, to endure that suffering. Now, this was backed up by the Staten Island District Attorney's Office, Michael McMahon, and the racist bastard he is. Excuse my language, people, but a spade is a spade, even though he's white. This was backed up by Victor Brown, the pastor of Mount Sinai Church, located on Pike Street in Staten Island, a man who has been part of my community for 30 years, who was a colleague somewhat of my late mother, who she helped regain his credibility after he had stolen from his church and cheated on his first wife, a great woman who I am friends with right now. Victor Brown did not like that. Victor Brown did not like the fact that I was the son of Reverend Howard and I knew truths about him that he wanted to keep from the public at large. So what this pastor did, this alleged man of God, this supposed shepherd, this supposed prophet and minister did, was he utilized his connections and his respect within the community to foster my ex-girlfriend's claims of abuse and domestic violence. And people, that went badly for me. Because with a district attorney backing my lying ex-girlfriend, with the police backing my lying ex-girlfriend, and with a pastor with community connections backing my lying ex-girlfriend, people, I was a sitting duck. And literally, that is what happened to me. I won an order of protection, people. This woman was mad. I won the order of protection. She went to her pastor, who plugged her with the local police. The local police drummed up a complaint on me. The district attorney co-signed it, and there was a warrant put it on my arrest. This woman used that complaint to try to effectuate arrest on me in the state of New Jersey in multiple counties. Now, that was a violation of my civil rights. And as everyone has heard watching me, I have fought diligently for the last, I would say, year or so, trying to clear my name of the allegations this woman put on me. Today, I'll be reading the actual decision that was rendered against her. And this decision states definitively what happened. It doesn't include everything. It doesn't cite her on the record for the lies about the schizophrenia, but it does totally admit to every word her saying being a lie and being completely unjustified by this court. And the court had no choice but to do this, because the truth is there was no evidence. There was nothing to substantiate the claims of Francina Evans. She's had multiple attorneys. She's embarrassed multiple attorneys who have resigned on her and quit, because the truth is she's had them before the court lying, and it puts them in jeopardy with ethics violations if Miss Evans is submitting evidence that she's doctoring and having the attorney certify it. So you'll read in this motion how attorneys have stepped down as her attorneys, free attorneys, realizing she was a pathological liar. Now, unfortunately for me in domestic violence, it is predominantly for women. So all Miss Evans had to do as a lying woman was go to another program and tell him the truth again, which is she was being stalked and harassed. And as you'll see, she was granted another hateful woman who to be her attorney, a black woman, unfortunately, named Cynthia Hardaway, a woman who decided to distribute my ex-girlfriend's falsified information to prosecutor's office and to the court, hoping to get the final order of protection dismissed. But people, I wear the honor of God, and I speak the sword of truth. So this attorney lost to an amateur, unlicensed black man with no legal skills, just the truth behind him and a desire to prove that he was lied on. This was injustice, people, and I am going to fight it no matter how long it takes me. So without further ado, because it's been 10 minutes, I'm going to get right to the Superior Court motion. So this motion, this decision, was granted on July 2nd. And as you see, Clayton Howard's the plaintiff, Francina Evans the defendant. Here it goes. Clayton Howard, pro se. I represented myself in this matter. Francina Evans was represented by Cynthia Hardaway, the attorney that I have listed distributed the falsified content to the prosecutor's office, which had me discriminated against as a victim to violate my civil rights. Now, this woman was appointed, to Francina Evans by the court of New Jersey. Her being so corrupt and wanting to do the same thing she did in Francina Evans's criminal prosecution to beat me, an innocent black man, she decided to take Francina's case pro se in family court to jump in and try to use the same fraudulent information from Francina's trial to convince this judge that I had lied on Francina. But this corrupt black woman, she messed up. And it didn't work because Clayton was on point. So without further ado, let's read the decision of this court. This matter comes before the court by way of a motion for reconsideration under Rule 449-2 filed by the defendant. Now, if everyone remembers, the defendant, again, is Francina Evans, filed by the defendant seeking reconsideration of the court's decision denying her motion, people. She filed the motion to dismiss the final order of protection, the final restraining order on February 16th, 2024. Defendant's motion for reconsideration was filed March 6th. The opinion follows as the court's decision on the defendant's motion for reconsideration. So what that means is that my ex filed a motion she filed a petition to have the restraining order, the final restraining order that I hold against her, dismissed. She used a procedure in the state of New Jersey called Carfagno versus Farfagno, where you have to list 11 factors in order to prove to a court that the need for the order of protection is no longer valid. One of those stipulations is that I, the plaintiff, have to agree. Now, if Francina had left me alone, people, I would have agreed, because the truth of the matter is I just never want to see her again. But people, as you know, that was not the situation. Francina never left me alone. She waited 4 days after her conviction and started lying on me to racist, bigot cops on Staten Island. And them, in their capacity to be the racist, bigot piece of shits they are, excuse my language, they came after me and arrested me as an innocent black man, knowing I was innocent because Francina was protected by the racist bigot Michael McMahon, who decided that a black man with a former criminal record could never be a victim on Staten Island. So he violated my constitutional protections and my federal protections as a domestic violence victim, completely disavowed my order of protection, which was registered in Richmond County, in the Richmond County Clerk's office, and decided to totally ignore the protections and charge me for winning a New Jersey order of protection. And people, this is 100% happened. This is why the NYPD is being sued and offered me 6 figures about 2 weeks ago for those 2 cases. But we going for 7, people, because they messed up big here. But let's go. This is the procedural history of Francina Evans. The court must address the relevant procedural history in this matter. The court notes that the parties have had an extensive history of litigation. On June 2nd of 2022, the plaintiff, Mr. Howard, myself, attained a restraining order against the defendant, Francina Evans. On July 8th, 2022, Ms. Evans obtained a TRO herself. Now, people, that's important, because if anyone remembers, July 8th is the day I went to court with Francina Evans and she was ordered to return the dog. So in retaliation for being ordered to return my property, she reached out to the mother of my child, notifying her about the abuse, and filed the false order of protection on me, trying to keep the dog away from me and have me falsely arrested, which is what I've been telling everyone, even the church of Pastor Victor Brown, who still chooses to treat me like I am such an offender. These people are cult followers, and they're not people of God. Pastor Brown's church is a people who do not follow God. They follow their pastor. They are controlled by their selfish worldly interests and their selfish worldly desires. They're not truly propelled by the word and the truth of God, because if they were, they would have vindicated the son of Reverend Howard, who has definitively proved that Francina Evans lied on them. But when you deal with a church that is comprised of corruption, run by a corrupt man, what more can you expect but a bunch of unethical, lying church parishioners? And I'm sorry, Mount Sinai Church, you still support Francina Evans and your lying pastor. That's exactly what you are. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. The trial for the instant matter, which is the order of protection, and the counter restraining order, the one Francina filed, took place over the course of multiple days with both parties present: October 6th, October 27th, October 28th, and December 1st. So, people, again, we had 4 dates of the trial that Francina had more than adequate time to state and show her cause, her evidence to prove that I had done anything to her. Judge Saunders entered the FRO against Miss Evans on the ground of harassment and burglary, and dismissed the TRO against Mr. Howard. Why? Because Mr. Howard was telling the truth, despite despite the feelings and the assertions of the Staten Island District Attorney's Office, the racist prosecutor Michael McMahon, or the bigot and corrupt Victor Brown. The court determined through the evidence and discovery submitted and through the defense of Francina Evans that Clayton, the man before you, was telling the truth. So Francina was granted a final restraining order, and the restraining order against me was dismissed in entirety. On March 13, 2023, the defendant, Francina Evans, filed a motion to dismiss the FRO using the Carfagno motion. The hearing on the defendant's motion was initially scheduled for November 16th of 2023. The plaintiff requested additional time to retain counsel, and the court adjourned the hearing to December 20th. Now, people, what happened was I was tired, so I hired an attorney. But that attorney robbed me for $7,000. People, I have been the unluckiest bastard in the world in this situation. I hired this attorney thinking he's going to do the right thing. He rainmakes me like Jerry Maguire, people. The bastard robbed me for about $7,000. Never did any work on this case, so I had to fire him. On December 20th, the court held the first hearing on the defendant's Carfagno motion, with both parties and the plaintiff's then attorney present in person. The defendant did not have the trial transcript ready for the court and requested additional time to obtain the transcript with a fee waiver. The court granted this request and ordered the defendant to submit the written trial transcript and evidence by July 25th, and ordered the plaintiff to submit his response to the motion by February 8th. The defendant did not submit the trial transcript as directed and instead submitted CD recordings of the trial. On July 18th, the plaintiff's counsel filed a motion to be relieved, which was granted by the court February 2nd. People, I had to fire my attorney because the bastard billed me for stuff that never happened. So I fired him, people, and I said, you know what, people, I'm going to take a legal research course. Knowledge is power. I'm going to learn how to fight this because I cannot afford to keep being lied on by these attorneys. It's unfortunate, people. We need attorneys in society, but we have to be honest. Much like plumbers and electricians have a license to steal, attorneys have a license to fuck you over if you are not knowledgeable about the rules and regulations of court or the law. And people, it happened to me so many times, I got tired. So I decided that instead of spend any more money on an attorney, to use the last couple of grand I had to invest it in a legal research course so I could learn how to fight these damn people because I was so tired. And it worked for me to an extent. On January 18th, and it was all. So on February 1st of 2024, the plaintiff filed a cross motion requesting a mental health evaluation for the defendant. I requested a mental health evaluation for Francina because, people, she needs one. She keeps requesting the court to grant her access to the dog, like she and I have a baby together, and we don't. So I requested a mental evaluation, compulsory damages, and punitive damage, and an order from the court prohibiting the defendant from posting about me on social media. On February 16th, the court held a second hearing on the defendant's Carfagno motion and the plaintiff's cross motion with both parties present and the defendant's then attorney represented in person. The court denied both the defendant's motion and the plaintiff's cross motion for reasons stated on the record. So, Miss Evans, my offender, her motion was granted because it was a lie. She had no proof to prove I was a diagnosed schizophrenic. She had no police reports to substantiate the litigation abuse she claimed I was filing against her. People, she had nothing other than her word, her pretty hazel green eyes, and her white attorney who kept standing before the judge telling the judge it was no way that a 6'2" black man could be afraid of a 5'7", 140-pound woman. See, people, that's how biased and discriminatory the legal system is. That this attorney made an assessment of me based on my physical appearance, that I, as a black man, couldn't be afraid of my ex-girlfriend, who was utilizing police and law enforcement as revenge tools to harass the living hell out of me. People, with the incredibly volatile nature of relations between police and black men, the fact that my ex can garner police support for wrongdoing she has committed against me and I be arrested as the victim. People, I was terrified of this girl. This girl is incredibly powerful, and the racism and bigotry that backs her up is my biggest problem, which I explained in court. You don't have to be afraid of someone because they're physically inferior to you. That's not the point of fear. Fear can come from a psychological place based off the evil that people do to you because they are intelligent enough to exact revenge on you. And people, this was Francina Evans. She stood before a church preaching a sermon where she told everyone that Reverend Howard had been abused by her son, while the members of Mount Sinai Church sat in the background with that's terrible. You damn idiot. She was lying through her teeth, and she was supported by your fat, bald-head lying pastor who believed that if he put her before a holy saint, a holy, magnanimous pulpit like the one of Mount Sinai Church, people, Victor believed that everyone in the church would believe because Francina was telling the truth in the church. Why would the parishioners doubt her if the pastor backed her? People, this is why everyone believed her. So, people, we hear why they denied my motions. Now, they should have granted my cross motions because the truth is Francina does need a mental evaluation. She does owe me money for the attorney fees that I had to pay. And people, she should stop posting lies about me on social media. I never beat her. I never sold the dog into slavery. I was never a Grinch for her. I never did the things that Francina Evans has accused me of in social media. They are complete lies. But the court does not favor men in domestic violence. It only favors men in domestic violence when it absolutely has to. And this was one of those cases because Francina Evans had absolutely no proof to substantiate the things that I had done, only her word, which was completely uncredible considering I actually had hard evidence from state agencies to prove that I was the one who had been in litigation abused, that I was not a diagnosed schizophrenic, and I also had the original transcript that proved that she had edited and falsified an public record and created over 30 Facebook and YouTube videos calling me a diagnosed schizophrenic. The judge, taking all of that into consideration, completely denied Francina's motion, but did not grant me, the black male victim, the justice of the decision to prove that she has done anything. The judge just tried to dismiss it, leave the order in place, and grant Francina enough time to still remain credible because, people, here's the truth. The reason my offender is still credible is because the court, looking out for her, will not cite her on the record with perjury. Now, they know she's lying. They're about to say it in this order, but they won't charge her with perjury. And because she's not charged with perjury, she's still legally able to go to a precinct and lie through her teeth until she is charged with all of the perjury she has done. And I'm working on that, not out of justice, people, in a method to stop my offender. Because if I expose her legally for perjury and lying, she can't come after me no more. And people, that's all I want. I don't want anything bad for her. I hope she has a new relationship, a new guy. I hope that shit works out for her. I pray for that man that he does not have to go through all of this hell that I went through trying to be good to a woman. And I truly mean that. But let's keep going. On March 6th, the defendant, Francina Evans, filed a motion for reconsideration of her Carfagno motion. The hearing on this motion was originally scheduled for May 16th. On March 21st, the plaintiff filed a motion for reconsideration of his February 1st, 2004 cross complaint. The court held a hearing on the motion on April 30th, where the plaintiff appeared in person and the defendant did not appear. The plaintiff motion was denied for reasons stated on the record. People, my motion was denied not because I didn't have the evidence, because the judge, in her capacity to continue to try to grant Francina some leeway. People, even though I won the decision, the court is still looking out for Francina. I proved every word I said. People, I showed over 14 different places where Francina requested visitation rights to the dog. By sheer definition, anyone who keeps doing that when the court tells them not to, you should be examined for some mental illness issues. But they won't do that, because if they evaluate her for more mental illness things, it lends more credibility to this order. People, I provided proof that she lied on me to the police in Staten Island, that she lied on me to the police in Middlesex County, New Jersey, that she has been lying on me to multiple state agencies and people for over a year. But this judge still denied my motion. Let's go to May 7th. May 7th. The defendant, Francina, retained new counsel who requested an adjournment of the defendant's Carfagno motion. The court, trying to favor Francina, trying to grant Francina as a woman some way to prove that this order was bullshit and that she had grounds, because people, that's the truth. The court has been helping her. The court has been doing everything it can to grant her enough space to prove that I did something wrong. People, this judge has granted her multiple adjournment days. The judge allowed her counsel to request an adjournment off of a date that had been dismissed months before. People, we had proof to prove that her attorney knew that the date had been dismissed. But the judge was so favorable trying to help this woman out, fuck the male offender, that the judge actually allowed this defense attorney to submit fraudulent information to get a new date, which I wrote a petition for. But guess what happened, people? It was denied. The judge didn't want to cite the attorney either, even though, again, people, we can 100% prove that this attorney used a vacated court date that she knew was vacated prior to the filing to get this adjournment. This is how corruption works in domestic violence. You cannot be angry, people. You have to be calm. You have to document it through briefs and motions, and you have to move on, which is what I did. So, on June 4th, the court held a virtual hearing on the defendant's motion for reconsideration with both parties and the defendant's current counsel present. Conclusion of law. The defendant filed a motion for reconsideration of her motion to dismiss the FRO Carfagno motion on March 6th of 2024. The court will set forth the legal standard and analysis for both the motion for reconsideration and the underlying Carfagno motion that was denied on February 16th. So they're going to explain why they denied her motion that was denied on February 16th and the motion that was denied June 2nd, 2 days ago. Legal standard. Permits a party to petition a court for reconsideration of any order. Cites the statutes. Although motions for reconsideration are not expressly provided by Part 3 of the Rules of Court governing practice in criminal courts, we have nonetheless applied the standards to contain the Rule 4. So they granted her a reconsideration of decision because New Jersey Rules of Court provide that within 20 days you can apply for reconsideration of a decision if you feel that decision is A, unfair, or 2, you can state specifically why that decision is wrong. So requires the so Rule 449, like I said, requires that the party moving for the consideration state with specifically the basis on which the motion is made, including a statement of the matters or controlling decisions that counsel believes the court has overlooked. Courts, however, are the ultimate arbitrator, blah, 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 blah. So basically, this is just the court citing the legal reasons why it has the authority to hold this Carfagno decision. Okay. So here's where it gets important. Notably, reconsideration is not appropriate simply because a litigant is dissatisfied with the decision. It cites the case law. Rather, it is warranted only for those cases which fall into that narrow corridor in which either 1, the court has expressed its decision based upon a palpable, incorrect, or irrational analysis or basis, or 2, it is obvious that the court either did not consider or failed to appreciate the significance of the prohibitive and competitive evidence. Analysis B. The court has considered the application of the moving party in the motion for reconsideration. The moving party was Francina Evans. She filed the motion. Reconsideration motions should not be used merely because a dissatisfaction with a court's decision. A motion for reconsideration is designated to seek review for an order based on evidence initially before the court, not to serve as a vehicle to introduce new evidence in order to cure an inadequacy in the record. The motion must state that with specificity the basis upon which it is made and must include a statement of the matters or controlling decisions that the movement believes the court overlooked or as to which is erred. In this matter, the defendant filed a motion for reconsideration of her motion to dismiss the FRO. The underlying Carfagno motion was denied by the court on February 16th upon review of the submissions by both parties and two hearings on the matter. In order to grant the defendant's motion, the court would have to be persuaded that its prior filings were clearly mistaken or otherwise not supported by adequate, substantial, and credible evidence. As support for this motion, the defendant submits a repetition of allegations raised in a previous motion. A hearing was held on the motion for reconsideration on June 4, 2024. The court finds that the defendant did not sufficiently demonstrate with specificity any evidence overlooked by the court or how the court erred in denying the Carfagno motion. Therefore, the motion for reconsideration of Francina Evans has been denied. Carfagno decision. Legal standard for dismissing a final restraining order. To secure a final restraining order under the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, a plaintiff must establish that the defendant committed a predicate act of domestic violence, as defined by New Jersey State Assembly 20C 2C 25 through 19A, and that a restraining order is required to protect the victim from further acts of domestic violence. The predicate acts in New Jersey SA 2C 25 through 19A include harassment and burglary upon the FRO base. So, people, I have two predicate acts on my audit that make me a legal, credible victim of domestic violence. I'm sorry for you, those of you on Staten Island who know my ex, who want to believe so badly that I'm a piece of shit who did all of this to her. But unfortunately, a court of law, a credible court of law, a superior court has reviewed all evidence between Francina and Clayton Howard and has determined that Clayton Howard was telling the truth. It doesn't matter if Michael McMahon in his capacity to be a racist thinks I'm lying. It doesn't matter if Victor Brown in his capacity to be a wife-cheating thief thinks I'm lying. A court, a judge who was elected by the people, has determined after Francina Evans had the opportunity to defend herself that Clayton Howard wasn't lying. Blah, blah, blah. The Prevention of Domestic Violence Act is designed to assure victims of domestic violence that the maximum protection from abuse the law can provide. The Supreme Court held that, at its core, the 1991 Act effectuates the notion that a victim of domestic violence is entitled to be left alone. And people, what they're talking about there is the act that Staten Island bothered to not pay attention to, which is the federal statute of domestic violence, the Violence Against Women Act. At the core of that act is a victim's right to be left alone. The day that a judge in New Jersey ordered me in final restraining order for Francina Evans to leave me alone, people, I became a victim protected by federal law, which Staten Island, in its capacity to be the racist piece of shit it is, coupled with Staten Island's the hugest Uncle Tom, Pastor Victor Brown, decided to violate my victim rights and tell everybody it was a lie. And people, they fucked up. This is why I am so determined to expose what happened to me, because it was wrong, people. Pastor Victor Brown was responsible for this. He is no man of God. He is no shepherd. He is a corrupt leader who uses his ambition and his lust for women to control his decision-making process. And it has become the mission of Clayton Howard to expose him for what he did to me. People, not out of malice, out of justice. Because if this man is allowed to use his position and his standards and his stature to I would say create a victim and to sick the district attorney and law enforcement on people he don't like, people, he ain't President Trump. He ain't even a fucking politician. Victor Brown is a regular man who has manipulated the community of Staten Island for over 30 years. And Clayton Howard is going to be the one who exposes that. So, however, the legislation did not intend that every final restraining order issued pursuant to the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act be forever etched in judicial stone. The Prevention of Domestic Violence Act allows the trial court to dissolve or modify an FRO upon good cause. So, Generally, a court may dissolve an injunction where there is a change in circumstances whereby the continued enforcement of the injunctive process would be inequitable, oppressive, or unjust, or in contravention of the police of the law. Now, they cite the Carfagno statutes to let you know their Carfagno motions and statutes, whatever. Only where the movement demonstrates substantial changes in the circumstances that have existed at the time of the final hearing could the court entertain the application for dismissal, cites more New Jersey law. With the protection of the victim, the primary objective, the court must carefully scrutinize the record and carefully consider the totality of the circumstances before removing a protective shield. People, my order of protection is supposed to be a protective shield. That Staten Island said, fuck that, we're not going to honor that, we're going to attack this guy anyway and allow this woman to falsely charge him and lie on him. People, this is exactly what happened, and this is why I speak so adamantly against Michael McMahon, against the Staten Island District Attorney's Office, against the NYPD, and against Victor Brown in reference to Staten Island, because this is what was done to me. And as a black man, as a truthful and credible victim, I should not have been violated this way. And people, I want my justice. So as a victim, my right is to talk about my situation. And I exercise that right today in reading this motion. New Jersey State Assembly 2C 25 through 29 provides that an FRO may be dissolved or modified upon the application only if the judge who dissolves or modifies the order is the same judge who entered the order or has available a complete record of the hearing or hearings on which the order was based. Cite some more case law. Failure to obtain the scanship will be fatal to the application, as the reviewing court will be unable to determine whether circumstances exist at the time. Now, people, here's the thing. It tells you that failure to obtain the transcript is a problem, but they allowed Francina to submit CDs. She was supposed to get a printed transcript, but people, the court was so biased and so willing to help this girl violate my rights that even the court that made this decision allowed Francina to enter CDs. Now, people, they weren't supposed to do that, but this is how much leeway this court was trying to give Francina to get out of this order. But see, here's the problem, people. You can't acquit a guilty person, especially if all the evidence says they're guilty. People, they wanted to convict me so bad. They wanted to drop this order so bad, but they couldn't because there was no evidence that existed to prove that I was, one, a schizophrenic, two, that I had used the order to maliciously have Francina arrested or charged. People, I didn't file a complaint for 3 months until I found out about all of the false reports that had been filed against me, which is my right as the holder of an order of protection against a woman who has a harassment charge on her. But this is what Staten Island has done in violating my victim rights, audience. It has refused to process the valid complaints against Francina Evans because of what it did to me December 5th, of 2022, when it falsely charged me for false reportings for winning this order. This is why Staten Island is being sued. This is why the racist district attorney Michael McMahon lacks the integrity as a man to apologize to me for wronging me, people, because he's hoping that he can sit his coward ass in his office and get out of this. But people, he's not, because I'm going to continue to talk about this. I'm going to exercise my rights. I'm going to exercise my legal avenues, and I am going to get the justice that the Staten Island District Attorney's Office has denied me through bigotry, racism, and favoritism. Let's keep going. Here, the defendant did not submit written transcript as instructed, despite having been granted ample additional time to do so. People, what did I just say? The court granted her favor it was not supposed to help her. Instead, she submitted CD recordings of the trial, which could not be assessed by the court. The court therefore relied on the court smart recordings to review the full record. So people, even though she didn't listen to the court record, the court, to grant her a little more favor, decided to review its own record to help her out. Analysis of the Carfagno factors. This is important, people. This is important. In the appellate division, the appellate division adopted a non-exclusive list of 11 factors first promulgated in Carfagno that the trial courts must consider when determining whether good cause has been shown. These factors, which are weighed by qualitatively, and not quantitatively, Carfagno 288 New Jersey Supra at 422 include whether here are the 11 factors for a Carfagno dismissal. Excuse me, people, I got a text. Whether the court consented to lift the restraining order, whether the victim fears the defendant, The nature of the relationship between the parties currently. The number of times the defendant has been convicted of a contempt for violating the order. Whether the defendant has a continuing involvement with drug and alcohol abuse. Whether the defendant has been involved in any other violent acts with other persons. Whether the defendant has engaged in counseling. The age and health of the defendant. Whether the defendant, all of this is factors that the court is going to use to judge Francina to see if they should remove it. That's why they keep saying the defendant. Because remember, she's the defendant in my order. I'm the plaintiff. Whether the victim is acting in good faith when opposing the defendant's request. Whether another jurisdiction has entered a restraining order protecting the victim from the defendant. Other factors deemed relevant by the court. The court addressed each factor during the February 16, 2024 hearing and will repeat them for completeness. So back on February 16th of 2024, when the court originally dismissed this motion, it stated on the record why the motion could not be granted with respect to all 11 factors above mentioned right here, as you can see. Let me make sure all of this is being shown. Yes, it is. Okay, so those were the 11 factors. Now, the court addresses each factor during the February 16, 2024, and it's going to do it again here. I'm sorry, I reread that. Whether the victim consented to lift the restraining order. People, I'm the victim. Regarding the first factor, the Carfagno Court states that the legislature intended that the court should follow the victim's request to dissolve a domestic violence order or dismiss the domestic violence complaint without further legal analysis. When construing a statute, the court must follow the legislative intent, considering the policy underlining the statute. Here, the plaintiff, myself, is vehemently opposed to the dissolution of the restraining order. Therefore, the court finds that the factor weighs strongly against the victim's application. Now, people, why did I vehemently oppose? Because she was lying on me. Because she was lying on my dead mother. Because I had been falsely arrested multiple times. And because she was still after me. And she currently still is after me, people. That's the truth. So even if I had wanted to drop this motion, which the truth is, people, I didn't want no more smoke with the girl. I wanted my life back, people. She got convicted of this motion. People, within 24 hours, I reached out to not only Staten Island detectives, but the Essex County Prosecutor's Office trying to drop her criminal cases. People, how am I being malicious? I'm not. I'm trying to move on with my life. She didn't want me to move on with my life. She wanted me to suffer for breaking her heart and taking my own property back, which I never gave to her. So people, because she was supported by bigotry and by racism and by the corrupt Michael McMahon and the piece of shit pastor who is Victor Brown, she tried to do this to me and it did not work. Let's keep going. Whether the victim fears the defendant. This is a good one. As the second factor, the Domestic Violence Act, protects victims from physical harm, yet physical safety is not all that the legislature is intended to protect. Recognizing that domestic violence occurs in a relationship where one party asserts power and control over the other, the victim is also protected from mental or emotional harm. Fear of the defendant is the center of the cycle of power and control existing in domestic violence situation. Restraining orders have the effect of empowering the victim to stand up to the defendant. Thus, fear is an important factor. People, how the hell ain't I afraid of a girl who is able to weaponize racist law enforcement to have me arrested in a community of people that know me for never beating a woman? People, I'm scared to death of Francina Evans, and I'm not going to lie about that. If I could physically deal with her, no, I wouldn't be afraid of her. But people, I'm not allowed to do that because the second she's physically dealt with, I become an offender. So people, what choice do I have but to exercise my legal right to stop Francina Evans from lying and stalking on me and being supported by the racist district attorney or her corrupt, lying piece of shit pastor, Pastor Victor Brown? People, I had no choice. So let's continue. Here, the plaintiff asserts that he remains in serious fear of the defendant. This court notes that the plaintiff does not allege fear of physical harm by the defendant. Rather, he testifies that the defendant's act of harassment and the resulting impact on his mental and emotional health had caused him to legitimately fear the defendant. A question remains whether the court should focus on the subjective fear or the objective fear. Subjective fear is the fear produced by and within the mind of the victim as the victim understands and communicates it. Objective fear is the fear which a reasonable victim similarly situated would have under the circumstances. The court holds that the courts should focus on objective fear. The legislator is intended the courts to consider objective, not subjective fear. The court finds that a reasonable victim similarly situated would be fearful under these circumstances. The previous history of domestic violence between the parties must be fully explored and considered to understand the totality of the circumstances of the relationship and to fully evaluate the reasonableness of the victim's continued fear of the perpetrator. So, people, they're about to explain why I'm still afraid of Francina Evans. They cite case law. The parties have an extensive history of past and ongoing litigation in family and criminal courts across the states of New Jersey and New York that form a reasonable basis for the plaintiff's continued fear. The defendant asserts that the plaintiff is not afraid of her. She argues that the plaintiff's numerous aggressive communications towards her and about her on social media demonstrate a lack of fear. Rather, she argues they demonstrate acts of harassment towards her. People, remember, she's been telling everybody my social media content is harassing towards her. This is important, members of Mount Sinai Church and Pastor Victor Brown. You should be listening. The court notes that the plaintiff has, in fact, posted frequently about the defendant. I have, people. It's my only avenue. She's stalking the shit out of me online and across social media platform, posting photos about the defendant and pleading her to stop harassing him through false reporting and abusive litigation, which is what I've been doing. First, the court notes that these communications by the plaintiff do not violate the restraining order he has against the defendant. Next, the court notes that the posts are protected by the First Amendment. There is no harassment exception to free speech. Moreover, the Supreme Court has held that even speech encouraging unlawful acts is protected unless it aims to incite imminent lawless action and is likely to achieve it. And that is the Brandenburg versus Ohio case, which I've mentioned before. This court does not encourage any such communications or postings about the plaintiff, by the plaintiff about the defendant. However, based on the facts and the relevant case law, the court does not find that these postings are unlawful or that they negate the fear the plaintiff has of the defendant. Therefore, the court finds that this factor weighs against the defendant's application to dismiss the FRO. Additionally, the defendant is aware she has the right to apply for a temporary restraining order if she feels so harassed. Now, see, people, this is where I'm having a problem. Because even though they're admitting that this girl is lying on me and filing false petitions, they're telling her to file new paperwork. Why would you do that knowing she's litigation abusing me? This is why I have a suit against the state of New Jersey. Because with respect to them, they're dumb. They keep doing this, and all you're doing is encouraging this lying, crazy-ass woman to keep coming after the man she has been harassing for 2 years. This is the crazy nature of domestic violence. But people, this is my life. This is what I have to live with. This is why I can't fully move on and be happy, fall in love again, maybe be married, because I have to keep fighting the litigation of Francina Evans, who is mad that she did not get the life she wanted. People, I was never bad to this woman. I treated this woman like gold, as was admitted by her brother, Bretton Evans, in recording on my page. People, Bretton knew I treated his sister good. So why would I be going through all of this? You know why, people? Because she's a broken-hearted kid who was mad that a man left her. So what did she do? She wanted to use her power as a woman with credibility in her community to seek vengeance on that man. And Pastor Victor Brown, a pastor of a church and the district attorney of Staten Island, the racist bastard he is, helped her pursue me despite the fact that they knew she was lying. Let's keep going. This court does not encourage any such communications or posting by the plaintiff. We read that. The nature of the relationship between the parties. Point 3. On this factor, the court must determine whether the relationship today is one that would allow the defendant to exercise control over the victim. The parties were formerly in a dating relationship which ended 3 months before the entry of the TRO. They do not share any children together. Currently, the parties live in different states, as the plaintiff lives in New Jersey and the defendant lives in New York. However, due to the considerable litigation between the parties, they have frequently appeared before one another in court proceedings and have both made numerous allegations of harassment. The court finds that this factor weighs against the defendant's application to dismiss. The number of times the defendant has been convicted of a contempt charge. The plaintiff has filed 3 contempt complaints alleging violations of the restraining order by the defendant. All such complaints have been dismissed. Now, see, here's the truth, people. They talk about these complaints, but they don't talk about the other 5 complaints that is in the Essex County Family Court right now against Francina. See, this is more of the court doing little things to help Francina, because the truth is there's active violations against her right now that this court, even though I submitted them, left them out the decision to make it look like all of her contempt charges are dismissed. People, that's a lie. She has at least 4 or 5 contempt charges right now being held in the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, who refused to prosecute her due to fictitious information she submitted with the defense attorney who is listed in this petition. People, that is the point of my lawsuit, because this is what they're doing. Okay, let's keep going. Whether the defendant has a continuing involvement with drug and alcohol, people, if she was involved in drug and alcohol, she wouldn't tell the damn court. So of course they're gonna weigh that factor. Has the defendant been involved in other violent acts with other persons? No, people. She's too concerned with me to worry about anyone else. So of course she's not trying to stalk or harass another nigga. She's trying to convince them that I'm trying to hurt her, so she can get some Captain Saberho to be stupid enough to jump out the window and get seriously fucking hurt. I do not want that, but I know the nature of this woman. I see the pettiness to her. I see the ability she has had to lie on me to thousands of people. People, I got a bunch of beef on Staten Island because of Francina that I am more than willing to accept because I'm not a coward. But the whole point is I should not have beef with men because my ex-girlfriend lied on me, and these two men are too much of cowards and too weak to apologize to me as a man for the mistake they made. That goes for Malcolm Penn. That goes for Bobby Digi. That goes for Mike Perry. That goes for Victor Brown. That goes for Michael McMahon. That goes for Dwayne Velton. That goes for Wade Perry. That goes for Melissa Thomas. That goes for Matthew Evans. That goes for Brenton Evans. People, that goes for dozens of people who falsely accuse me of doing things to this woman I never did. Let's keep going. Whether the defendant has engaged in counseling, people, even if she did engage in counseling, people, she's a narcissistic, pathological liar. This is a one-sided counseling where she's going to sit there and tell the counselor all of her problems and never address anything she's done, which she's done her whole life. So I don't even think this counts. The age of the victim, yeah, she's in reasonably good health, blah, 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 whatever. Whether the victim is acting in good faith when opposing the defendant's order. People, this is important. The courts consider the good faith of a victim in opposing the defendant's request to dissolve the FRO. For example, in a divorce action, the court is mindful that sometimes one party abuses the act to gain advantage in the underlying matrimonial action. People, I'm not even married to that girl, and that's what she's doing to me. Here, based on the nature of the parties' relationship, the court finds that the plaintiff has no motive to gain by keeping the FRO in place outside of the protection of the domestic violence order. The defendant alleges that the plaintiff is opposing the dissolution of the FRO. So people, Francina is alleging that the plaintiff is opposing the dissolution of the FRO in bad faith in order to abuse her through litigation and hinder her efforts to obtain employment. However, the defendant, Francina, submitted no proof to substantiate this. The court notes that the plaintiff has adamantly testified as to his continued need for protection of the court based on the tumultuous history between the parties. As established, the FRO was granted to the plaintiff against the defendant in 2022 on grounds of harassment and burglary based on the findings of fact and the conclusions of the law that were made at the time of the trial. Given the short passage of time since the entry of the FRO and the reasonable fear of the victim, the court determines that the plaintiff is acting in good faith in opposing the defendant's motion. Now, people, why did the court make this determination that I'm acting in good faith? Because it saw all of the police reports Francina filed against me. It saw the social media videos that she was telling people her journey dating a diagnosed schizophrenic. People, it saw the falsified paperwork of her taking my father's court transcript and altering it to deceive a community of people, and people helping her to think she dated a diagnosed schizophrenic. This judge saw all of that. So people, how could he dismiss her motion? How could she dismiss her motion knowing Francina was doing all this? People, that would have been the greatest violation of victim rights for this judge with all the evidence against Francina Evans to dismiss this FRO. But people, as long as it took, I really thought that was happening. Because people, this was a no-brainer. Francina had no evidence other than her word that I was litigation abusing her. People, clearly she's connected to the police. The Staten Island District Attorney's Office honored her as victim of the week, even though she had been convicted of a domestic violence offense. People, she's connected to the police. I am not. I am the black man who is racially discriminated against, who is discriminated against for sexism, who is discriminated against by favoritism, and Francina is held above me. Why is it that I can get no justice with all of this? Is people, it's because of my skin color and my sex. But people, I'm not a coward. I'm going to keep fighting. Let's go. 10. Whether another jurisdiction has entered a restraining order protecting the victim from the descendants. The parties have indicated that they are currently having temporary restraining orders against each other in Richmond County Court, Staten Island. As this decision, there has been 3 trial dates on this matter: May 21st, May 30th, June 25th. The trial is still ongoing as the last date is scheduled July 10th. The court finds that this factor weighs. So basically, they're saying that it's still ongoing. So I have another order of protection against her. Now, people, here's the best part about this. This court, didn't mention the fact that there's a whole transcript where Francine admits on the record that the petition I'm being tried for, that the order of protection in New York was filed under fraudulent means. People, every piece of paperwork this woman has filed against me has been a complete lie. The order of protection held against me on Staten Island, Francina stated on the record November 17th, while her friend Melissa Thomas was in court, that a family justice advocate by the name of Noor falsified her original petition to list acts of physical domestic violence against me. Now, audience, the only reason the order of protection was granted against me is because Francina made allegations that I was physically abusive to her. But once I played the recording where she admitted I never touched her and I treated her like gold, she blamed it on this advocate to try to get out of it. See, people, Victor Brown, Michael McMahon, true to life, they all give this woman credibility because she's pretty, when the truth is she's a sick, pathological liar. And it is my mission to expose her, to regain my credibility, to regain the respect that she had removed from my mother's name when she lied on her in Mount Sinai Church. See, people, Victor Brown should be man enough to clear Reverend Howard's name about the falsity Francina told in that church. But because he's a weak, lying thief and a wife-cheating pastor, he'll never do that. He'll never allow his credibility to take such a damage by admitting that he did this. So, people, it's up to me. It's up to your boy Clayton to expose Victor Brown for the lying piece of shit he is. Forgive the profanity, those of you who believe in God like myself, but profanity does not indicate that you don't believe in God. Profanity has no indication, no specification on whether or not your faith is justified. People, this is just me being me, and it is my word that I'm going to expose Pastor Brown for the lies he told on myself and my mother. Not out of malicious intent, people, out of justice. Because as a black man, I deserve justice. I deserve the justice to have my offender held accountable for the lies she told in public, by falsifying a public record and by giving speeches in public that she advertised where she accused me of acts I was completely cleared of and that she falsified. That was wrong. This pastor is wrong. This district attorney on Staten Island is wrong for refusing to honor and respect my rights as a victim. And this is why they will be held accountable. Excuse me. So we're basically at the end. The court cannot find any other relevant factor. So, for the foregoing reasons, based on the review of the findings in the record, testimony taken at the hearing, and the legal authorities cited, the defendant's application to dissolve or otherwise vacate the final restraining order entered on December 1st of 2002 is hereby denied. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what that means, people. This is why my FRO was confirmed. Not because I'm a liar, people, but because my ex lied on me. Because the litigation abuse she claimed through advertising on social media never happened, people. That's what happened. She lied on me because she was mad that I won a restraining order against her. So what she did was utilize racist and bigot connections on Staten Island in the 120 precinct and through Michael McMahon to have me arrested for winning this order, knowing I was telling the truth. Staten Island in its capacity to be what it is, and people of Staten Island, residents of Staten Island in my community, I'm sorry. Staten Island is inherently racist. It does not protect the rights of black male victims. It does not care. Staten Island's whole ideology is that black men can only be offenders. This is why it set me up on a fictitious case with a completely falsified criminal complaint written by a detective, cited from a domestic violence complaint that my offender filed a year before that was dismissed by another detective to bolster the criminal complaint he wrote against me. People, they 100% violated my victim rights, but I am judged to be, what's the word I'm looking for? I am judged to be an offender. I am judged to be wrong, people. I am judged to be the man who is literally being being horribly pursued by Staten Island and being violated for victim rights when I'm telling the truth. People, maybe if my skin complexion was the color of this background, the DA's office of Staten Island would give me more credibility. But people, I'm a black man, and I'm a visibly black man, as you can see. My mannerisms are black, my speech is black, people. My overall physical appearance is that of a strong black man. And Michael McMahon, the decrepit, racist piece of shit he is, he hates strong black men. He likes Uncle Toms like Victor Brown, who's going to sit there and say, "Oh, yes, sir, master. Oh, yes, sir, master. I got you. Master, you want me to go get you some corn for the field?" That's Victor Brown. People, that ain't me. I'm real. I don't lie. I never lied on Francina Evans and people, the God's honest truth on the life and the soul of my beautiful mothers. I never wanted this. People, I tried everything I could do to stop this before it got to this point. Even contacting Pastor Victor Brown before Francina was ever criminally charged, before any of order of protection was put in place, people, I did the right thing. I contacted a black male minister. And as a child of the black church, I reached out to this man for help and assistance to stop this woman, maybe to help this woman who was a member of his parsonage, who he was supposed to protect as her shepherd. People, his personal arrogance, his personal feelings of hatred towards me forbid him from doing the right thing for this woman. People, he empowered her with fictitious resources that have her in more trouble now because she illegally and falsely utilized resources of the state to pursue me in vengeance. So now the state is liable for a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because of the lies and the negative actions of Pastor Victor Brown. People, the truth is, the Staten Island DA's office is being sued because of what Victor Brown did to them. Victor Brown put them in position by hooking them up with Francina, and he knew Francina was lying. So, people, this has been going on an hour, and I think I've pretty much done my job of pretty much detailing my order of protection. As you see, people, from the procedural history, I have not been lying. What has happened is that my ex-girlfriend, angry that I won, decided to launch a war of revenge on me. That war was supported by by Staten Island, the district attorney, and the corrupt pastor of a local church. That war was supported by members of Safe Horizon, by the Family Justice Center, all trying to look out for the girl they believed on Staten Island, which was Francina Evans. And they all got fucking egg on their face, people. And do you know why? Because she was lying. Now they're all so arrogant. They're all so proud. What is his name? The Charles Fallses, the Camilla Hanks, all of these people that took pictures with her, Terry Troy, all of these people, now they all got egg on their face and they look fucking stupid because the truth is she's a pathological liar. People, I am not a man who's malicious. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do expect my name cleared. And until Pastor Victor Brown, until Staten Island acknowledges what it did to me, I will not stop. There are civil lawsuits involved, and I'm going to get paid off of that. And then I will advocate against what Staten Island did to me. People, I have no intention on stopping until the name of my late mother and myself is clear. So on behalf of Justice and Operation Rock, this was Clayton today, bringing you a great and super informative broadcast that I hope has shed light on what has truly happened between myself, the Staten Island District Attorney's Office, the role that Pastor Victor Brown played in it, and the truth behind what Francina Evans did. Francina Evans is no victim. She's a pathological liar who was hurt that the man she loved left her. Not because he did anything wrong, because her mother is a crazy bitch who was stalking the hell out of him in conjunction with her grandmother. Forgive me if you people don't like the fact that I called her mother a crazy bitch, people, but we got to call a spade, and we got to call what it is. Her mother is obsessed with her. Her mother's completely toxic. Her mother's narcissistic, and her mother lives her life through the daughter that she feels is her reincarnation. People, I ain't got time for that. I need a woman who wants to be her own woman, who's not afraid to stand up to her mother and her grandmother when they wrong, people. And I realized that Francina Evans was not that woman, so I left her. I should not be held criminally liable for breaking up with my ex-girlfriend for valid reasons. People, I'm going to take one from Francina. Breaking up is not a crime. Clayton shouldn't have been victimized for breaking up with Francina Evans, and Staten Island shouldn't have violated his civil rights to protect the heart and the feelings of a lying, broken-hearted ex-girlfriend. That was wrong. And that's why they're going to be held accountable. So on behalf of Justice and Operation Rock, people, happy 4th of July. This went on for an hour. I hope it was informative. I'm signing off. People, pray for the situation. Pray that God ministers to this girl's heart and gives her some insight into what she did, people. Because obviously talking to her, obviously trying to do the right thing, people, by buying her a dog, by trying to step back. People, I did everything I could to stop this. but I'm not God. I don't have the power to wave a finger and change somebody's mind. No, people. When people are honestly dedicated towards evil and hurting you, they're gonna do whatever the fuck they want to do until they accomplish that goal. And Francina Evans is no different. She hates me, people, for breaking her heart. She wants to hurt me because I destroyed the dream she had of being a family and all whatever dream she had. And I don't diminish that dream, people, because the truth being told, and I don't want to admit this, but I have to tell the truth, is we did have a very beautiful relationship up until the point her mother cursed out my dead mother. People, we got along perfect. It was honestly shocking to me how well me and this girl got along. What destroyed our relationship is what her mother, Laura Owens, did when she cursed out my dead mother, the late Reverend Maggie Howard. People, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and the camel's back was broke for a long time. People, I want a new camel. I want to move on. So people, help me spread awareness to this. Spread the truth. If you're on Staten Island and you ever come across someone talking about this situation, if you see Francina trying to advocate as a victim of domestic violence, you know the truth, people. Don't support a lie. Don't encourage a liar to keep doing things to come after someone who wants nothing to do with her, people. Help end intimate partner stalking. Help bring awareness to ex-partners who do the things Francina Evans does, where they abuse litigation to seek vengeance against a man who has never done anything to them. People, that's all I want is my peace, people. I want to enjoy my 4th of July today and have a really, 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 really good cheeseburger. I haven't even had a drink in 6 months, people. That's how focused I am on clearing my name. And I'm not going to have one today. I'm going to have some watermelon juice. So, people, continue to pray for the situation. Pray for Francina Evans. She needs it. Pray for Victor Brown. Clearly, he is no man of God. Clearly, God does not speak through him. So, people, the only thing that we can true for a man so flawed and so fucked up and corrupt is do like my late mother, the late great Maggie Howard, used to do for Victor Brown, and pray for that piece of shit, because he's going to continue to be the slithering, lying snake he has always been. He is deplorable, people. He is the perfect example of what a man of God should not be. That is what Victor Brown is. On behalf of justice, people, and Operation Rock, I am Clayton. Enjoy your 4th of July. Enjoy the fireworks. If you're in love and you have a beautiful partner or a beautiful wife, someone who is loyal to you, someone who would never do the things to you that my ex-partner did to me, appreciate them. Because you don't find people like that. You don't find people in life who will love you enough not to hurt you if they feel that you hurt them. If you have somebody like that, people, appreciate them. God knows you should. On behalf of justice and Operation